enter after, write this down, a minus 20% drop from recent peak. Okay, now what the peak is and where it is, we're going to practice that this afternoon. But basically what we're looking for is we're looking for a recent high, a peak that goes up and then down, a peak. Or this could be one as well, but we're going to take this one here. And we're going to do minus 20% from here before we ever get in. Why would we do that? Why? Why don't we just invest today? Yes?
Safety margin.
Safety, a margin of safety. We would rather invest down here than we would up here. I would never want to invest right at the top, because then all I'm doing is just losing money. I would rather get in at a minus 20, for example, what happened to Apple the other day, for example. It's just an example. Or Uber. You know, and that's when you get in for the very first time. When there is a 20% drop. Yes, please.
Thank you. So what's the parameters of recent?
Right, remember we're going to cover that this afternoon.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to cover that, and we're going to look at charts, and you're going to go into your charting software, and we're going to do that together. Here in this one here, we're looking for, and you might want to write that at the top. You know, your price cost average equals 5 to 7% a year. 5 to 7% a year. That is the price cost average strategy. Why? Because you're really just getting an average of the market. It's unlikely that you're going to be doing more than 5 to 7% on average, right? Sometimes more, sometimes less a year. Now my question is, how much do you need in the bank? And you know the answer because we went through this. If you want 50,000 a year and you're going to get 5%, what does your critical net worth need to be in order to get 5%, 50,000? How much? Everybody, how much? It's 1 million. 5% of 1 million, 50,000. So, how's it going? You all got $1 million in your trading account, yes? Well, yeah, it's there, but where is it? So therefore, we need to do a lot more than 5%, yes or no?
Yes.
Yes or no?
Yes.
We need to do a lot more. Okay, so that is why, very importantly, we are not going to do this strategy. This strategy is just there to show you a concept, how every single month we are going to invest the same amount of money. And you know, if you want to do it for your children, you can do it for your children. Because they've got 65 years or whatever. Who's got children? Who's got young children? Just think about that. You could start doing this. But I wouldn't bother. I would do the next strategy, and that is this one here. That is the value cost average strategy. What's it called, please?
Value cost average.
The value cost average strategy. So what we're going to do is we are going to, here are the rules. There's the rule. Enter after a minus 20% drop from a recent peak. So write that down, please. There's a little rule table at the bottom. And we are looking for 15% a year. Now, you're going to make a lot more than 15% a year, but we're looking for 15%. Okay, so how do we do this? The very first thing that we need to look for is what? Well, yes, and so what I want you to do is I want you to pretend that you know where the peak is. And that peak is up here, okay? So let's just see what that peak might be, and hopefully you can read this. 19.28. Write that down, please. 19.28. Peak equals 19.28. Does anybody not know where I got that number from? Hands up if you do not know, because it's a workshop, so we ask questions. Okay, good. So I could see, and I don't know how, by miraculously somebody has written that in here, 19.28. And there's a little line going all the way there, and that is that peak there, okay? 19.28, that's how we know. Now what you're probably going to do is you're just going to put your cursor on there on that day, and it will tell you the high, which is what we want, the low, the open, and the close. And it'll tell you, okay? On any one of these, your cursor will just go on there, and it'll tell you what it was on that day. Now, in the 80s, they didn't have stuff like this. You had to basically look at the newspaper. They didn't have things like this. This is just incredible. Okay, now here's what I want you to do. I want you to work out, please, what is my first entry point? 20%, good. Below what? The recent high. What was the recent high? Everybody, what was the recent high? Right? So I want you to work out what is that minus 20%. What is it? So how do you work it out? You times this number by 0.80. Leave 80, take away 20. Leave 80, take away 20. All right, so it's this number times 0.80. Now I know some of you are laughing because this is maths, but some people have forgotten that or didn't know it or whatever. Okay, so we just keep it simple. Is it okay if we keep things simple? Yes or no? Yes. All right. So please work that out. I want everybody to actually work it out. I don't want you to rely on anybody else and say, oh, my buddy will do it, because that's how you do everything. Here, you're going to have to work it out by yourself. If you don't have a calculator, use your mobile phone.
When I look at that and see 20%, I can then say, right, take 4 off there, I'm in at 15.28. Is that acceptable?
Say that again.
Sorry, I look at that and I say 20% of 19.28, take off 4. So 20% so the mental arithmetic on 19.28.
Yeah, you just have a different way of working it out, do you?
Is that okay? Can I just knock 4 off the 19 and say that's all right? Or do you want it point precision?
No, point precision.
Right.
No, point precision, absolutely.
It's not 4, there we go.
No. It needs to be absolutely exact, yeah. So, what is the answer? What is the answer? All right, so this is what I heard. I heard 19.28 times 0.80 is 15.42. What does that mean? That means that your first entry point, and I'm going to draw a line here. Right, let's grab one of these. Is at 50. I wonder whether I could just make this a little bit bigger. Look at that. Look at that. 15.42, which is going to be around here. That means that your first entry point, see whether you can find it before I get there, is going to be actually, you know what? Let me do page up. No. Your first entry point. Why is it not picking up the thing? There we go. See whether you can do it before I get there. That your first entry point was here. Right there. Can you see that? Right there. Right smack in the middle there. January, February, March. It was the 2nd or 3rd day of March. Can anybody not see that? You need to put your hand up right now. This is not school where you try and hide. This is your finances. You need to put your hand up if you do not understand. Are you stretching or are you putting your hand up?
No, I'm stretching.
Oh, you're stretching. I can see you're going to be trouble. I can see that. Okay, so can anybody not understand where I got that from? Hands up right now. Okay, there's private discussions happening at the back. What's going on, Dan?
Just trying to find where the peak, there's a discussion about where the most recent peak.
So we're going to, okay, the most recent, I told you where it was. The most recent peak is here. There. Don't worry about why. We're going to cover that this afternoon. But for this exercise, this is the most recent peak. And so therefore, we've taken this number, we've taken 20% off, and therefore you are left with what? A number which is 15.42. Any questions on that? You're absolutely 100% sure? Okay, we draw a line there. We can actually put an order in advance. Even if we're up here, we wait for it to fall until it comes to this. The broker then buys at that point. Any questions there? Any questions? Even if you're thinking, shit, I can't ask this question. It's a stupid question. People are going to think I'm a moron. You've got to ask the question. We're good?
Yep.
Amazing. Okay, fantastic. Now, here's the deal. Please write this down. What is the very, very first thing that we do with this strategy? What's the very, very first thing? What is it? We wait for a what? For a 20% drop. Okay, 20% drop. Okay, so here we're at the 80 mark. So that's the first entry. Okay, the second entry is at 10% below that. The third entry is at 10% below that, but it's always from the recent peak. So it's 20%, 30%, 40%, 50%. What do you think comes next? 60%. Okay. You might want to write that on the piece of the blank page that is opposite your or next to your chart. All right. So we're going to do minus 20. Let me do it with another pen. We're going to do minus 20 here. Then it's minus 30 here. What's the next one? Minus 40 here. What's next? Minus 50. Okay, which means here, this line here will be at the 50 mark. Okay? So it's from the top. Any questions on that? So we're buying and we're hoping that whatever this is going to fall so we can buy some more and lower the average price. Okay, if you do that and you do it in the way we teach you, you will outperform everyone that you know. And the reason is because as you fall, your account is going to be in minus because you got in here and then it falls and you're like, oh my God, it's in minus. And we're all in minus at the moment in oil, and then it dropped again. Now what do you think most people are doing when it drops? Selling. They're selling. But we're buying. Why are we doing that? It's a good question. It's a good question. We will come on. We will answer that in just a moment. I first of all got to teach you this, and then we'll go from there. Okay? Now, this is what's going to happen. The rule, though, is that we are not just going to buy again. We are going to add more money every time. And each time we're going to add 25% more money. So write that down. We're going to add 25% more money. In other words, if you started off with £100, you're going to multiply that by itself, 1, plus 25% more. 1.25 equals £125. So you're going to add a little bit more money every single time. We're not going to double it because that's what people do in casinos. They double up. They put in 100, then it drops, 200, no problem, 400, no problem, 800, bit of a problem, 1,600, 3,200. Now you've got to borrow some money from your neighbors or your family. Okay, so we're not going to do that. That's called the martingale system, where you keep doubling and doubling and doubling, because it's going to go up, right? Yeah, but the problem is it could stay down or could go down further than you even thought it could. But Bitcoin went from 1,000 up to 20,000 in 1 year, which is insane. And then it dropped from 20,000 to 3,250. Now, most people were not expecting that to happen. So they put too much money in at the top, instead of putting a little bit in and then a little bit more, and then a little bit more, and then a little bit more, and then a little bit more. And then the most that I bought was at 3,500 odd. I mean, I'm almost like, but just because I followed the strategy. And that's when I put the most amount of money in. And then when it turned, well, I'm making a shitload of money on that, because it's now at what, 9,500. Not because because I followed the strategy. How many of you understand? Yes? Yes. But you never get in at the top. You wait for a fall. You wait for a fall. So instead of going in at 20,000, where would we have gotten in?
20% less.
20% less. Yeah? 20% less. Okay. Now, so what does that mean? What that means, and I need you to have written this down nicely on the piece of paper which is next to, yeah? So you're going to start off with £100. This is an example. Okay? Then we have a calculator which shows you how much money you've got to invest, and will tell you how many times and what you are going to invest. But let's say it's 100. Okay? Now, let's say the stock, or whatever it is, then touches this line. As soon as it touches this line, we're going to take the 100. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? We're going to add 25%. How do I do that? 1.25. So this one now I'm doing it with £125. What do you think happens when I buy at a lower price? What happens to your average price? Comes down. What happens if I buy at a lower price and I add more money? Goes down even more. Now let's say it, but then it didn't. What happens? I take this, 125. What do I do? Everybody, what do I do? Make sure your neighbor is with us here. Look at your neighbor and say, what does he do? Ask your neighbor. What does he do? What does he do? Make sure your neighbor's got it. You got it? Yes? I'm going to add 25%. So I multiply the 125 by 1.25. And this one here is not 125. This one is 156. You understand? So each time it's more. What do you think I'm going to do next time if it drops? I'm going to take 156. What am I going to do? I'm going to multiply by 1.25. Which I have no clue what that is, but 195. Yeah? Simple? Yeah. Okay, any questions? I'm going to stop there. Any questions? Yes, sir. Hold on a sec. Please stand up. What's your name?
It's John.
It's John, everybody!
So let's say you enter the market
Yes.
at your 80% point, and you enter the market at your 70% point, and the market then turns and doesn't ever drop anymore.
That is terrible.
Well, it's not because you're on profit, but when do you take the profit?
Take profit we're going to come on to later. Yeah, we're going to come on to later. But now we're just entering. Anything on that I've covered so far? Yes, please. Please stand up. What's your name?
Paul.
It's Paul, everybody. Big round of applause for Paul. Yes.
It was just a question about how much would you invest into each stock, or is that coming later?
That's coming later because we've got a calculator which is part of the club, okay, which you have access to. And you're going to download it, and then you're going to write down, okay, I have this much to invest in total, so how much should my first one be?
Okay, great.
Okay, fantastic. Who's next? Anything on anything I've covered so far? Yes, please. Please stand up. By the way, there's some private conversations going in at the back, and I need you to listen. Shh, 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 shh. Listen up, listen up. Okay, we'll come to you. Yes.
It was just
what's your name?
Ryan.
It's Ryan, everybody!
Just a quick question on the specific amounts that you put in. Does it have to be, do you round it up, or does it actually to the same?
It has to be absolutely to 2 decimal places. Yeah.
Just wanted to
Yeah.
I know you're
Yeah, okay, very, very good. Okay, very, very good. Now, yes, at the back. What's your question? Big discussions going on. What's your name? Please stand up.
My name is Irene.
Irene, everybody!
I know you said the entry point is 20% when the price drops to by 20% from the peak. Then the other numbers, I don't know where you're getting the 80, 70, 60.
That's the rule. You basically get in at 80% of that, 70% of that, 60% of that, 50% of that.
What about the other one, the 30%, 40%?
It's just another way of looking at it, right? This is at minus 20% or minus 30%. Okay, so this is what's left, 70% is left. You've taken away 30. You've taken away 40, what's left? 60. You've taken away 50, what's left? 50. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay? So whichever, you can either look at this is probably the easiest one. So if it confuses you, then get rid of this. Just focus on this. Okay? Any other questions here? Yes, please stand up. Then we'll come to you. What's your name?
Osman.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Give him a big round of applause.
What's the lowest that we should go to?
0.
0?
Well, yeah, that's the lowest it can go to, right?
So just keep going down 10%.
Keep going, and every time it goes down, like. All right, very good. Yes, we had a question over there. Please stand up. Okay, what's your name?
Tom.
It's Tom, everybody.
With this one, we're investing every percentage point, not at the start of every month.
No, because if you do it at the start of every month, what if it just went up and down, up and down, up and down in a very tight range, and you got in and you got in and you got in and you got in, you can't wait for it to go up, and then it goes down. Now your average price is heavily weighted because you've done several times at the same price. Now it goes down, now you're in big trouble. And that's why we only do it when it falls by 10%. You're getting that from the one-day event, yes?
No, I think when I done my first 2-day workshop a few years ago, it was like, even if it goes up a bit, put more money in, but just a less amount.
Yeah.
And then when it goes down,
So what we found, like that was the evolution of thought, right? So what we said was, okay, you do a little bit less when it goes up, more when it goes down.
Yeah.
And then we did, okay, but when it goes down, let's do even more. And then we said, well, when it goes up, why are we like buying more expensive than last month? Why don't we use that money and put it into something else that's going down? So the best way to use your money and to get the most bang for your buck is to only buy something as it really goes down to a lower price, but to be doing it on several of these. That's the best way of doing it. Give him a big round of applause for that.